All right, what's up, family? It's your girl, Jen Ether. Right now, we're doing something different, something fun, something I'm going to do more of. But this will be the first one that I'm doing. We're going to do an album review. The album we're reviewing, Exodus, the new Exodus album by DMX. So, for one, DMX is my guy. You already know, as far as me being a tarot reader, a spiritualist, and all that shit, I'm obviously very connected to those who pass on and all that. But, of course, if you were someone that impacted my life or someone that was around, then, you know, that's going to be felt on a deeper level. So, I didn't even know they were putting out a posthumous album. That's what it's considered when you put out the album after the person passes away. So I didn't know they were putting out the album, but I ran into the Swiss Beats interview on the Breakfast Club. Go check it out. I may try to put the link in the description if I remember. But yeah, Swiss was on there. Great interview that gave a nice character portrayal of DMX just as a person. So I would definitely suggest going to watch that interview. But yeah, that's how I figured out that there was this new album. So let's get into it. There's another reason why I'm doing this review. But first we're going to just go down the track list. And I'm going to let you know what songs I like the best. Which ones are the singles. I picked out which ones will probably be the singles. I think they already got one single running, which is Skyscrapers with Bono, which makes perfect sense. Because first of all, it's Bono on it, so you're grabbing up two elements. That's already like a song that's a nice ear, it's easy to the ear, it's easy listening, and it's easy for that radio play. So I can understand why Skyscraper was the single. It's one of the better songs on the album as well. It's like probably my second favorite song. But let's get into it. The first song on the album, drink some water. Okay. So the first song is That's My Dog. That's my dog. That's my dog. It's like kind of like that, right? It's Swiss Beats is on the chorus. He leads. That's like the first thing you hear when the album comes on is That's My Dog. So off top, you're pretty excited, especially for if you're like a someone that grew up on DMX, or even if you were, you know, someone who was out going to the clubs, really rocking with DMX when all this, when his first album and all that shit, the Rough Riders anthem and all that shit was first dropping and first hitting, this was a great introduction to the album. So, the song has a 90s boom bap type of feel to it, Swiss on the chorus. Now, to tell you the truth, I had to hear it twice. Now, this album as a whole, I had to run back because I just listened to it before I decided to sit down and do this. So, the album plays better the second time. So, this is the album that you definitely want to listen to twice. The first time, I feel like eyebrows will be raised because my eyebrows were raised on a lot of decisions. And we'll get into the technicality. Stick around because I'm really going to get like more so into what I think or basically the reasons why I believe the album played out the way it played out, the reason why certain things are certain ways on this album. So that's going to be towards the end. But let's hurry up and get through the song list. So yeah, That's My Dog. It had that boom bap 90s feel. I like that song. It sounded like that classic Rough Riders type of track, you know, like that old school, like stop, drop. It was along the lines of bringing that type of sound back. Then the next song, Bath Salts. I mean, I didn't even take notes on Bath Salts. There's not much to say. Or, like, Bath Salts got a lot of flack from what I'm seeing. Like, we got the regular opinion of just the consumer, which I consider myself to be. This is my first my first album review on the internet. And then you got the internet album reviewers. And, man, they was... I mean, I've been watching reviews for like maybe 2 weeks now, and then this album came out, so I watched this review, and the reviewers, man, are very tough in general, so they were just as tough on this album. They were very unimpressed with the verses of Nas and Jay, but the way I looked at Bath Salts, for me, is a historical moment. Now, I'll say X's verse... Not bad. Yeah, I think even the mixing on X's verse wasn't too bad. So with Bad Souls, I took that as a historical moment because it's the first time we got a track with DMX, Jay-Z, and Nas. And we're just now starting to get Nas and Jay-Z collaboration. So that's like their second time on a track together. You know what I mean? Since everything's going down with the ether shit and, you know, the takeover beef. But so Bad Souls, I like Bad Souls. I mean, it didn't blow my mind, but it's an enjoyable song for that. Like, this is this is like a historical type of jam for me. Like, I would go back to that song for historical archive purposes. It's an easy listen as well. Dogs Out. Dogs Out, not one of my favorites. Not one of my favorites. Not the worst, though. Not the worst, but not one of my favorites. Then we got Money, Money, Money. I like DMX's verse in Money, Money, Money. I like that song, too. Still not one of my favorites. At the end, I'll summarize my favorites. The next one we got was Hold Me Down. Hold Me Down is a real-ass fucking track with Alicia Keys on the chorus. Now, like I said, this song is another one that I had to listen to again. Once I played it back the second time today, I was like, okay, it sounded, I don't know if it was how I had my speakers adjusted, like was my, you know, was my high end too high and my bass too high, whatever. But it sounded a lot better this round, and I love that song. That's one of my favorite songs. That's probably like my second to favorite song. I put them like in a list of my favorites, which are pretty much what I think the singles will be. The reason also these songs are my favorites because they were the best sounding as far as like just technical. And when I do my later reviews, I don't plan on being a technical album reviewer. Like, I don't plan on saying, oh, that compression was so off, the vocals were muddy. But in this case, and I think because it was a posthumous album, I am going to have to touch on these certain critiques, these certain areas for this certain album. Alright, and this is all out of respect. Also, I want to say rest in peace, rest with God. And, you know, this is not out of this is going to be like, this is an album review, but we're really this is, like I said, this one's probably going to be my most different of all the album reviews I do, because it's a posthumous. And I definitely have a lot of stick around to the end because I have a lot of thoughts on this album. So stick around on the end. Okay, so we got Hold Me Down. I love that song. I liked it. The vocals could have been mixed better for X on this song. Probably for Alicia too a little bit, but I'll say for X, especially when he was doing a lot of his screaming, and you know how X gets. With that real loud and ruckus, you know what I mean? So when I say for everyone who's just a listener or a consumer of the music, when I say the vocals could have been mixed a little better, they could have been a little more clear for us to be able to hear them a little better. But other than that, I really enjoyed Hold Me Down, and after the second run of it, I heard everything a lot more clear. So it might just be me. I'm getting older. I just had a birthday. You feel me? Might really just be me. So, Skyscrapers, one of my favorite songs. Bono, of course, he kills his chorus. It's very soft. Skyscrapers. Yeah, I mean, it's this is one of my favorite songs because it's speaking on how tough it is to basically be living a spiritual life but having the human experience. That's what this song is about. That's what DMX is talking about. How he's basically been living life, having a living spiritually, but in this but in this human body, and how that's a struggle for him to find balance within doing that. So I would definitely say go check that out. I think that song is very relatable to a lot of us, especially in these times today. We got Hood Blues. Hood Blues reminded me of like throw up your 22s, your 22s. If that's what it is on Reasonable Doubt's album, it had that type of feel where it's almost like they're in a loud ass cafe rapping. You know what I mean? It was a real freestyle type of situation, but it had that feel like they was like out, like really in the midst of rapping, and someone's recording it with just their phone or just a camcorder. You know what I mean? So I love that because again, the vocals for X could have definitely been mixed better on this one. He did a lot of screaming on this one, and you really couldn't hear X on this track. But my favorite part to this track was the ad-libs, because the beat, it had like a soulful beat, but it was a little new age. So it gave me first of all, to hear X's ad-libs like that, the barks, the growls, on a newer beat, that shit sounded good. Like, and it had like, I can't remember who's all on that song. I didn't write down all the features. I don't want to lie to you, but there's a lot of new cats on that jam. So that was a nice song. The Rain. Not my favorite song because DMX's mix vocals aren't the best. The Rain. This is one of my favorite songs. Him featuring Nas. It's a great song. It didn't have a lot of meat to it, but it had it just has a good feel to it. I like that they had is DMX doing the chorus, but then they have a nice melodic singer coming to do the bridge, and it's a smooth sounding track. So DMX is taking a lighter approach on this one. He's not really screaming in this one, which I love when X does both, but on this particular song, he did what it was called to do. So, and you know, it was nice to see him and Nas on a track as well together, just them two alone. Then we have Take Control. This one is probably, this is probably my first favorite song over Skyscrapers on some real shit. This is a song where DMX is in his bag with the female. He's literally talking to a woman in this song. Now, on to the song, and I got to know now, is you with me or what? Or, I mean, we could go to Brenda, Letitia, and Letitia. Like, when he does these particular songs, something about him talking to these women or talking about women, he be killing this out. He just kills it every time. And this is, I definitely would say, this is probably my #1 pick for the album. Now that I'm really sitting here reflecting back on the album, that would be my #1 pick. And it's also featuring Snoop Dogg. Another reason that makes this my #1 pick for this album is because DMX has 2 verses, which is rare. I think this is the only song that DMX has 2 verses. This CD is filled with features, and most of them X is at the end of the song, which I'm cool with. I didn't have any dispute with that. I feel like that's the best place to be if you're going to be the only verse. I mean, either the front or the end. So there's some songs where he's at the very beginning, and there's some songs where he's at the back. But this is the only song where he's literally got 2 verses and Snoop's in the middle of the song. Also, what makes this song so dope is it got that Marvin Gaye sexual healing, and I think that's what also put X in his pocket, because I've been watching these like these shorts, and X really was a lover of like soul music from what it seems, and Michael Jackson, and just, you know, that good music, the 60s music, the 70s music. So this is the song where X hits every pocket perfectly. Bang, bang, bang. This is the song. This is my favorite song on the album. Take Control by DMX. That's my favorite song on Exodus. The other song, Letter to My Son. This is the last song on the album. It's very dope. It's literally it's literally what it says. It's a letter to his firstborn child, and he's basically explaining to him the trials and tribulations and how he wished things could have been better. Now, mind you, he wrote this song before he was passed, of course. That's how it's out. So it's touching that he wrote this basically not too long before he passed. Like, it's almost like, did you know? You know what I mean? Like, you have those feelings like, okay, let me make sure I put this down so he knows. You know what I mean? So that song, when I first heard the album, I cried listening to that song. Song's very touching. I definitely would suggest that. So out of my favorite songs on the albums, I would definitely go back to say they are That's My Dog, That's My Dog. Bad. That's the beginning. I love that song because it really introduces, like, that's the reason why I'm picking this song. It's not the best song on the album. It's not even one of the best, but it does what it's supposed to do. it intros the album. It brings it in. You feel like this is some Rough Rider shit about to happen. Like, you really feel that feel of the Rough Riders. You know what I mean? So that's one of my favorites. You can't miss that song. Bath Salts, another one. And another one. Skyscrapers, The Rain, Take Control, and Letter to My Son. So for me, not a bad album. Not a bad album. Especially, now this is what I will say. Now, let me put my notes down. Now, the biggest problem with this album and the biggest disputes and complaints I was hearing about this album was really the mixing. And I'll say the fact that when you listen to some of these X verses, he is out of the pocket. Like, especially when he's doing his loud, basically barking. Like, not really barking, but when he's da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, rapping and really screaming at you. Now, the reason why, and this is just my humbled opinion as an artist, but I'm going through something kind of similar as to what X was just going through. I basically haven't had a studio up in 2 years. So now my studio's been up now for probably about going on like 7 months, 8 months. And my expectation was like, oh yeah, I put the studio up. Like I had just learned how to mix and master as well. So my expectation was after that 2-year hiatus, even though I didn't know much about mixing and mastering, I figured, all right, once the studio's back, 2 years later, I'm gonna get straight to it, push this music out. But there was so much I had to retrain myself on. Now, X is not a mix and master, so that was my plight. But even with me getting in them pockets and like you know, I was writing flows the whole time. I'm rapping the whole time, but the studio's different. There's a little bit of latency that, you know, comes. So that's a different feel when you're actually getting in there rapping to the beat. This is totally different than just rapping to the beat outside of the studio. You know what I mean? So, and that was with me having a 2-year break. Now, and it didn't take me too long to get into the flow, but even now, sometimes it's like, it takes me a little minute, like, okay, let me do that again. And that's what any rapper, it takes a couple takes or whatever. But as far as me being very uncomfortable with it and just being like, damn, I'm totally off. Like, I'm gonna have to sit here and really fucking practice this shit. That took me like maybe a month till I felt comfortable. Like, okay, I'm good in the booth again, everything's in the pocket. X, I was off for 2 years, took me about a month. X was off for like a decade, y'all. X ain't recorded nothing for a long time. So he took a tremendous break. And from what Swiss was saying in that Breakfast Club interview, I definitely gotta link it in the comments because I keep referring to it. But from what from what Swiss was saying in that interview, X really hadn't thought about coming back or recording any music until the verses happened, and it inspired him because, you know, his catalog was getting listened to again, so that was showing like, oh, your music, like, yeah, bro, it's still super relevant. And the Young Bucks, yeah, I mean, was reaching out. You probably hear my studio shit. The Young Bucks were reaching out as well to sample, I mean, and work with them. So that inspired them to come back in. Versus for X was like maybe a year ago, if that. It was probably like 7 months ago, something like that. So it hasn't been much time. From a 10-year hiatus, you're not even, like I said, from my time when I took my break, which was not I didn't mean to take that break. Something just happened to my computer. So 2 years I was down. I went through a lot of shit in between that time. 2 years, no studio, right? But I knew I was coming back. So I was practicing. X did not. So we have to take that into account. So also, as I'm practicing, guess what you have to do to practice? You have to record. I'm writing songs. Like, so if you go back in my computer and go back to my my archives, you'll see songs from what? Because I've only been recording now for like 7, 8 months. You'll see my first songs from the 8 months, they're not going to be as good. So let's say if, you know, something would have happened to me the first 2 months of me getting back into it, that would have been the music that you had. Now, would it have been the music that I necessarily intended on coming out with? Probably not. It was probably just my warm-ups. Like, let me get these warm-ups in. I'm still recording this music because no matter what, once you got the songs down, you can always, it's always great. Like,
to have the songs down, even if they don't sound their greatest, because once you're in the pockets, you feel like, oh, I feel 100%. You just go back and work on those songs. You already got the ideas. Usually your ideas for the songs are good. It's usually the execution that may need some work, and maybe a little bit of wordplay change, switch a word here, take a word out here, shit like that. You feel me? So as far as that goes, I believe that's what we are witnessing in real time. We're witnessing, I believe, the works of a man who was in the gym putting up his shots. Like, all right, let's go. Because if you don't know you passing, you got all the time in the world. Let's put up these shots. Let me get right. And then another reason why I can definitely say I believe this to be true is because we were also seeing them go ham on other features. So the songs that he was putting out, like, he didn't put out no solo shit, but he was jumping on shit with the locks, making videos in the pocket. Like, all them verses, go check them out. And I mean, I've been watching, I'm a true X fan. So I've been watching X since he's come out of jail. I've been on X since he came home. Like, oh, X is home. That's what's up. And I mean, X coming home was like my uncle or some shit. That's how I feel like, oh, X is home. I'm watching every move. You know what I mean? So I've been watching X. I've been watching him on Drink Champs. I've been watching his the singles or the features that he's been on. So any feature that he has been on in like the past year to year and a half after the verses, he's been in the pocket, which means to let you know that he's really been like very critical about what's coming out. You know what I mean? When he puts something out, that's why he hasn't really dropped a solo album or a solo single yet. Now, this is no discredit to my guy, or his guy, I should say, Swiss Beats. Swiss Beats was, I believe, executive producer. He's the producer of this album. So yeah, he's the executive producer of the album. Now, from basically, I'm saying all this to say is that with X passing, we have what we have. We have the jump shots. We got, you know what I mean? We got them. So now they're going to take the best of that and do what they can do with it. Now, some may ask, well, why do they have to do anything with it? And this is, as I thought deeper into the subject matter, it goes down into being signed, as always. It always will, always does. But or versus being independent. But X just signed a deal to Def Jam. So X was signed to Def Jam Records. I mean, he was happy about it when he signed the deal, because that's where X came from. X has always been a Def Jam artist. X is the one who revitalized and brought Def Jam back to life in the 90s and kept them, you know, and allowed them to have the resurgence all the way through the 2000s and shit. You feel me? That was X who did that shit. And then, of course, Jay and them came on and helped out State Property, and everyone came to the table. So they ended up with a lot of artists. But initially, it was DMX who saved Def Jam. Russell Simmons talks about it. Go look that up. But yeah, so with all that being said, yeah, DMX, because X was actually signed at the time of this album, he signed a deal. When you sign a deal, you get an advance. So an advance is a loan. This is for those who aren't in the know, especially I'm a tarot channel. You know what I mean? I'm adding more content, but a lot of people who watch this will need to be educated, because y'all ain't watching all this shit. You feel me? Of course, I'll put my SEO to work to get it out to the right eyes and everything. But for those of you guys who aren't as privy, I'm just letting you guys know. So when you sign a record deal, you get that advance. That advance is a loan. And how you recoup the money given and how you pay back your loan is based upon your album sales. Now, this makes sense on why I also said that X wouldn't have dropped necessarily this album. These were his gym shots. These were his jump shots. You know what I mean? Because you have to drop something that's of enough quality or of enough, even a rollout. I mean, everything has to be put into place so you can have the best chance of recouping with this album. And X probably would have recouped because he was coming back. You know what I mean? This would have been his first album in 10 years, whatever the fuck. I don't care what they gave him. He probably would have ended up being able to recoup some and he probably was waiting for the pandemic and shit so he could go on tour, because he's coming from a different era. Remember, X is also used to being able to recoup in hard copy sales. And even though the artist never got a great percentage of that, it was still better than what you're getting percentage wise when you're looking at the splits of streams. So I'm sure he was being strategic within that, doing the math, seeing how he would come out best on how to drop the album with the pandemic to make sure he could be covered, put some money towards the recoup, go out, tour, do all that, right? But with him passing away, we get this album because of that. We get this album, I believe, very quickly, very rushed. Even with the mixing, I believe the mixing was rushed. I mean, I mix and master, and I haven't been doing it that long. I've been doing it for about, I can't even say 5 years because I took 2 years off. So I've been doing it for about 2 years now, right? Total of the time I've actually put it. And yeah, the mix was totally rushed. It wasn't made for perfection, but it was made for profit, y'all. It was made for profit. This CD was put out so Def Jam could possibly recoup some of the earnings from the cash advance they gave DMX when they signed him. Now, some may say, oh, F Def Jam, or oh, F Swiss, or oh, but, and this is why Swiss can't speak on that, and I'm not trying to speak for, this is all still just a humble opinion, but I do know the business. I've studied it long enough to kind of be able to, put the lines together of what's really going on. You feel me? I can do this with a lot of shit. I'm smart. You feel me? I can put shit together, right? So, anyway, this is definitely no beef to Swiss because Swiss got to make sure that he was executive producer. And also, I'm sure he doesn't want his guy to go out in debt. So, yeah, you got to put the project out. So, this is not really anyone's fault. I wouldn't even blame Def Jam for it because they gave out the money. So, yeah, you have to get the money back. And this would be the best way to do it while it's fresh on everyone's mind, while everyone's in mourning, while everyone is still, especially with the way the world works today, time's moving quickly. So, put this album out there, get it in everyone's hands who really want to get it, which is a lot of people, and hopefully he can recoup. And then depending on what the splits was on this album, what the deal was, if he recoups from this release, then he can go on and just collect his earnings, his estate can collect his earnings from there. So it's not really, I'm not really emotional about it. I'm just telling y'all what it was, and this is business, right? So, with that being said, I said all this to say this. This album, in my opinion, should be looked at in the same light and in the same way that we looked at Michael Jackson's This Is It. Michael Jackson's This Is It was pretty much the same thing. Michael Jackson's in the gym, right? Except for the only thing is we knew that Michael Jackson was actually about to go on tour. So DMX, I think DMX didn't want to announce anything because once you announce I'm dropping the album, that's like me. I have announced that I'm dropping a mixtape and everything is going, or singles or whatever, and everything is going bad because I made that, and not because I made that announcement, but it's because I can't really have time, especially with my hiatus. I can't control on when my shit sounds right. You know what I mean? X, because of his hiatus, he can't really put no time constraint on it. Like, yeah, it's gonna come out now. You know what I mean? You'll be ready. So no, he can't do that. So I think he was not saying anything, but I believe he was working on albums, a tour, something of that magnitude. Now, with that being said, he didn't announce it, so it's a little different than This Is It, because we did know. So when they put out the footage, they just rolled it all out like that. But that's what this album is. This album is a DMX This Is It album. It's literally DMX in the gym. When you watch This Is It, Michael Jackson, you do not see Michael Jackson, and not to even say he couldn't, but you do not see him doing what he would have did for the tour. You don't see what you would have saw. You're seeing him preparing for it. And that's what we got with this DMX. We did not get what we would have saw when DMX was ready to drop what he was going to do. Yeah, but we did see the preparation of it, and that's a blessing within itself. And I think we're very lucky to see it and hear it. When I just heard his voice, I felt great to just hear DMX's voice on something new, and just, it was exciting. So this is not an album that really, I don't feel like it's an album to truly be critiqued in the light that we would critique another album. Especially in this sense, I feel like we should really be looking at this like more in this, like literally the same way we look at This Is It, a preparation. And Swiss, he also said he was going to actually probably put together some scenes of them in the studio, which will be like a This Is It of this whole recording process of this CD. So that's going to be interesting to see, and it's like I said, that's what this is. So yeah, come on, this is the dog we talk about. The dog came through and really saved not only Def Jam, but damn near saved all of hip hop at the time that he entered the game. And I mean, DMX was blowing up at a time where we really like we had lost two greats at the super rise, like when he was really starting to rise. So he filled a huge gap, and he brought something totally different to the game. His originality, he was always himself, and he was a real one. And he allowed us to see into his trials and tribulations. And as I've grown and gotten older and going through my own trials and tribulations myself, I've grown to not only enjoy his music, but to just respect him as a man, just for being able to endure so much, and also being able to obtain the amount of success that he's obtained. So I definitely suggest going to check out Exodus. Check it out. Give it not just one listen. For prime optimum ears, give it at least 2 listens. It don't got to be back to back. Maybe I did it like 2 days apart. So I listened to it when it dropped, when I saw that Swiss interview, and then I listened to it 2 days later. So I would do it like that. All right, y'all. It's your girl Jen Ether. Thank you for sitting down and watching my first album review on DMX Exodus album. I appreciate y'all.